Hello and welcome to the Villa Park podcast. It's me, Rich, and I am back for the highly anticipated Talking Tactics show now, Gareth. I mean, we're getting requests on Twitter now for when it's coming out. I mean, it's absolutely amazing, isn't it?
It's mental, mental.
I think it's just because every time we do one of these shows, we end up winning. So yeah, well, I mean, I think we've discussed one defeat so far, and we're going to discuss another victory from Saturday.
Yeah, let's maybe those in the know are watching. Who knows? But yeah, so we're obviously doing something right, and it's good that people are interested in it. Hopefully it adds a bit of a different insight from an inside of football club perspective on what people do actually look for. So yeah, people seem to be enjoying it. It's good.
Awesome, awesome. Well, before we get into it, we've got, as I say, we've got our usual player networks, passing, player influence, XG, which has been getting a little bit of stick on Twitter lately. So we might cover that a little bit because I know you have a really good explanation for what XG does and why it's there. And then I've looked at your slides and your stills, mate, and they look absolutely fantastic. So make sure you stick around for the whole of the video today because there's so much insight in these still images, and we're seeing some different ways in which Emery is using the players and the passing networks to kind of change up things. So this is going to be really interesting to see. So make sure you stick around for that. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you're new to the channel, and comment on anything that you've seen in this video because yeah, it's great time that Gareth spends on these. So get subscribing so you can you don't miss out. Um, so let's get into the first of all, mate. The passing networks, our usual, our tried and trusted, our usual one. Anything different on this, or are we kind of still seeing the similar kind of setup as before?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, obviously, we've got to. People will sort of question the position of Ramsey there. Now, the reason he's central is because he switched wings after the substitution on the 28th minute, which is why we've done the passing networks from the 28th minute. Because obviously, before that, it's a little bit of a different sort of case where we want a bigger period of time to assess a passing network. So we've gone from the 28th minute, which was the first substitution, up until the 75th, which is obviously the second substitution. I wanted to sort of Traore had that game time, so we want to put him on there. And like I say, the reason for Ramsey and Buendia's positions is because they changed positions on those substitutions, with Ramsey switching wings, Buendia coming into sort of a right midfield position, I think. Up top with Watkins and Traore on the right hand side. So, but apart from that, the passing's pretty much the same. Mourinho, the highest expected threat value in the side again. And the passing structure is pretty much the same. It's a little bit difficult more to interpret with those substitutions. But the structure remains the same, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Just a quick one on this. I don't know if you obviously Martinez, Mings, Konsa, that triangle, and then out to Moreno and Young is really prominent. But were you a little bit surprised that Forest just sat off and didn't press as much the centre backs or the passing across the back as maybe they could have done?
Yeah, slightly. They did press high at times, I will say that, but at certain points when there was
Yeah.
obviously a trigger that sort of went, I think it was more like sort of when the ball went wide to Mourinho, then sort of Forest decided that was the trigger and they would then press at that sort of certain position. But yeah, they didn't really press sort of either centre backs. And I think Martinez to Mings is usually the highest passing combination in the side throughout the season, pretty much is the same. It's always that. It's getting a little bit higher with to Konsa, but that is usually the highest combination.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was just interesting being at the game that I really wanted to see like a Forest team high pressure. I guess what they were like at the start of the season. Giving teams a real game, but I just felt like they didn't show what they maybe could have done.
No, I mean, what I would say, I did post on Twitter yesterday. A really good example for a certain sort of a pressing trigger, if you like, is what we saw yesterday between Manchester City and Bayern Munich, where we saw Upamecano end up getting pressed by Grealish and then Haaland coming in. So that was the trigger for them to press, and it was the same sort of thing for Forest and Villa on Saturday. When
Mm.
that ball went wide, they knew that Moreno was the danger, and that's when they decided to press. So it's all about sort of keeping an eye out for those triggers
Yeah,
for certain teams.
yeah. Understood, mate. Understood. And then our usual player influence. So as we can see, Mings, Konsa, Young, Moreno featuring very heavily. Anything that spotted any different here?
No, not particularly. I think we're still seeing that back four sort of involved in those higher passing sequences. They are Mings and Konsa are the high ranking players for us for general passes in a game, as they are in most teams for centre backs. It's commonplace, but we're starting to see them a little bit more involved. It's again, I refer back to what we've said, I think, in the last 2 or 3 pods. We have to be careful that we're not going to become too predictable, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a key, and I know you're going to highlight a little bit of that in the still images, which is great to see. So our XG, so we'll just look at the shot map, XG timeline, X threat timeline, but also your opinions on. I don't know. I guess you've seen it. Let's just have a little look at this first. Obviously, what is this telling us? In terms of the XG
I mean,
across both
yeah.
teams.
Yeah, first of all, it tells us that we limited Forest to barely anything. They barely created anything, just the 6 shots, 0.25 XG, and the shots are indecent. Like we can't complain at that. But for us, did we expect a little bit more of a higher shot count, a little bit sort of more gung ho attitude, maybe, possibly? But the expected goals on target is 1.98, and we've scored the 2 goals, so we've exceeded the XG just, which is about right. That's okay. It means we're a little bit more, we're pretty much clinical, which is pretty good. We can't really complain at that. I mean, it's a 2-0 win. It's a 2-0 win.
Yeah. Professional performance and all that. All those cliches. And then this is just going to, again, tell us the same thing. As the game wore on, we kind of got more threatening, and obviously Forest didn't offer anything.
Yeah, no, it was just it tells the story, doesn't it? Better shots in the second half, sort of thing. After I think the introduction and when Traore come on, we can see just that was the first sort of shot we had was sort of not long before. Sorry, he came on, so it was better from us in terms of the second half performance. I think we sort of took it all a little bit too much in our stride almost. Maybe we were a little bit too relaxed, but I think
Mm.
people obviously thought there was going to be a 3 or 4-0. I think, judging by what's happened recently, but it's not always the case in the Premier League, is it?
Absolutely not. And when teams like Forest fighting for their lives, fighting for every point, they're going to come and they're going to frustrate and they're going to keep players back. They're not going to press, particularly in that first
No.
half. Maybe try and nick something. And they were quite a big physical side. Like I was quite, not necessarily surprised so much, but they had some big players in that team that were quite physically imposing as well.
Yeah, I was quite surprised they didn't make the most of set pieces and things like that, because that's where their sort of their threat a lot of it is, and like you say, especially away from home. At 1-0 game, they're still in the game up until the 75th, up until Watkins goal. They're still in the game, aren't they? At 95
Mm.
minutes when Watkins scores, and that's what you want from a manager as an away performance: stay in the game. But they just didn't sort of do anything to try and sort of really push us, really.
No. And then just quick look at the game flow. Obviously, the threat game flow. Dominant performance, as we say, professional performance from Villa. That I think this just highlights the lack of threat that Forest possessed.
Yeah, I mean, what I took from it was the fact that although we controlled the game quite well, but our expected threat is quite low, and I
Mm,
think we could have sort of maybe improved on that a little bit more, sort of in and around the final third, passes into the box, try and sort of create that sort of more clinical opportunity sort of thing. So that I was a little bit surprised at that, but it's a dominant performance really
yeah,
overall.
yeah. Now, just before we go into the still images and what you've kind of picked out from the game in particular, like I said, there's been a little bit of kind of back and forth with. I'm not sure if he's a Newcastle supporter. I can't remember what his name is on Twitter, but he's an analyst as well. And he's looked at that. I think you showed it a few episodes ago about over a certain period of time, the kind of XG for and against. And Villa are outperforming their XG on both elements quite considerably. And it maybe gives an indication slightly that we are obviously we're outperforming it, but maybe that is going to level itself off at some point. And it's getting a bit of stick from Villa fans because obviously we're on a great run and we don't want anyone to kind of poo-poo that great run. But just give us an insight into what XG is used for, and how that is a helpful indicator, because I think that will help the Villa fans to kind of understand what he's trying to say.
Yeah, I think if people sort of refer back to, I posted, I think, on something on Nottingham Forest, actually, a rolling XG, and it's a we can do it in very different ways. XG is just a sort of a shot quality chart, the shot quality basically. The expected goals on target is the quality of the shot when it's on the goal. So we can work that through goalkeeper averages and how many goals they've saved and things like that. But a team is not just judged on XG. XG is just a shot quality. But if you are creating higher XG chances, like a penalty, for instance, is 0.76 or 0.79, whichever people choose to do it. But if you're creating high quality XG chances, so inside the box, sort of they're usually the high, you can outperform your XG by scoring goals. So it's all compared to how many goals you score. Like, for instance, Villa on Saturday was what was the XG? Can't remember.
1.98.
1.98. So that's expect. So we outperform that by scoring the 2 goals just slightly. The teams who are underperforming obviously can create a lot of chances, but yet don't score as many goals. So then they're underperforming their XG, and that works 2 and 4 against. So it depends how you want to do it. I sort of tend to do them on a 5-game rolling average, which ours has not been that great, over 5 games. Excuse me. So it depends on which way you want to look at it, but you're just basically talking about shot quality, and that then tells us the quality of the chances that team is then creating, and then we can look at goals. Are they outperforming or are they underperforming?
Yeah, and then I guess in terms of the concession of goals, Villa are outperforming that in terms of not the last game, because obviously Forest hardly created any chances, but I think a lot of reference has been made to the Chelsea game where they had a high number of shots, albeit in my opinion they didn't have any. They had 1 or 2 really good chances, but other than that, I felt that they were kind of wayward finishes or over the top. But that being said, they created a lot of chances and almost using that as that's going to catch up on Villa because they're giving up way too many chances. So that XG in terms of chances given away is something that we're outperforming on as well.
Yeah, I've got something on. I'll have to try and maybe look at it later. I've got a rolling XG that I did the same thing for Aston Villa, and it's not as great as what people seem to think it is. We are doing okay, but we do give up on general quite a lot of high quality chances. And the same was said under Gerrard, but it sort of evens itself out depending on whether you're looking at for and against. So it's really difficult to try and explain without sort of visualizations. Really, that's the best way of doing it. But Villa are not the best at they do give up a lot of high quality chances. So it depends how you want to look at it and how people interpret it. It might be to some people a useless stat. To most of us in the game, it's not. It's very useful, but it's personal opinion, I guess.
Yeah. And just quickly, would you suggest in your professional opinion that it will catch up on Villa? Or would you suggest that the signs are that we are making improvements in both areas that we can continue to keep pushing on?
Yeah, I mean, you're coming towards the end of the season, so you've only got 5 or 6 games left, 7 games left. So I mean, it is what it is. It depends on how people want to interpret it. I don't think it'll catch up on them this season, but it probably needs to be sort of shored up a little bit to make sure that that this is the thing that people have to realize. If you're giving up high quality chances, on average, the chances are you are going to probably lose less games. So, but it's all about being careful. If you're creating a lot of chances at the other end and scoring plenty of goals from those chances, then it kind of negates itself a little bit.
Yeah. No, understood. Right, that's great insight, mate. So we're going to get onto the still images now. Just while we're doing that, please make sure you hit that like button. Please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. We are very, very close to 1,250 subscribers, so well on the way to 1,300, and obviously push into that 2,000 setup. So that would be brilliant if we could get there in the next few weeks. And comment on anything that you've heard today, like XG. What are your thoughts on it? And obviously, what does Emery need to do about pushing us? Continuing this great run. Do we need to slightly change our tactics or anything like that? So, yeah, really, really, really useful information there, Gareth. So we've got about 7 slides to look at, and as I say, I've had a look and it's fantastic analysis. So just take it away, mate. This first one's looking at our high line. So off you go, mate.
Yeah, I think I highlighted this, didn't I, last week and probably the week, a couple of games ago. I can't quite remember which. And we just have to be careful that that back four, even though it's narrow, look at the gap between the two centre backs there. It's not what we want to see. And we've highlighted this before. I know there was a couple of instances in the last few games where I highlighted it, that players ended up being offside. Now, that's okay if the line is good, but the line has got to be strict here. The line's not too bad. But again, we're playing players onside here, and this is something that I think does need to be tightened up now, because we're looking for trends. We're looking for things that are happening sort of game after game. And we are seeing this quite a bit. And the high line trying to compact the midfield is good. It has its pluses and it has its negatives. Its pluses are that the team gets up the pitch. And like I've detailed in the text there, that midfield players can then operate in higher areas and better because you squeeze the team up the pitch. The negatives are, if you're playing against pace, then you leave yourself a bit open, as we've seen with Liverpool lately. The same thing applies. So it's all about ball retention in the higher parts of the pitch, really, that can aid you with that offside trap.
Yeah. I think, and again, this is just layman's terms. I think he's playing a higher line because of the lack of physicality that we have in midfield. Like when we had Gerrard as manager and Smith as manager, we used to play we used to be so open in the midfield. I know he's got like a box four now, and they used to play a three, but we just used to get massively overrun, and then players would just run with the ball just completely through our midfield. So I get what you're saying. It's kind of what's the better, lesser of two evils? Are we more likely to kind of win battles, get players around the ball and win those second balls and try and get forward, but keeping a high line? Or are we better to drop off a little bit and leave that gap in midfield? It's a difficult one to say.
Yeah, it's risk versus reward, isn't it? And that's what it is with a high line. I think situations like this is probably where we do miss Kamara, where his natural sort of instinct is to sit a little bit deeper and provide that cover in between those centre backs if it's needed. So we'll see how that changes moving forward.
Yeah. And then moving to kind of the second slide, and I think there's a few that we're going to move through on this one, but this is what you wanted to highlight in terms of slightly changing our build up.
Yeah, this is obviously the first of a few slides, like you say, where we're going to sort of try and walk it through. It's hard to sort of get it across in stills, really. But here we can see JJ at the top of the screen, and he's now moved over to that left-hand side where he started on the right-hand side. So we've started to see sort of different variations where people are having to drop in and that. And Forest were in a 3-4-2-1, I think, or 3-1-4-2, something. So they played four across midfield, and it was difficult for that box midfield to sort of get sort of stationary and in perfect positions where we'd normally like to see them.
Yeah. And then obviously, creating some passing alternatives here.
Yeah, and this is where we see this is where we need players to be dropping in. And I mean, this is when Buendia is obviously doing that job here. And it just makes that extra man into midfield where you're then creating space in behind you. But it was tricky for Forest in a mid to low block. It was a bit tricky for him, to be honest, to get on. We didn't see Buendia at his best on the ball, I don't think.
No, and sometimes he was tracked, and then other times he was kind of let go. But he was let go when he was in deeper positions, and he couldn't necessarily hurt too much. And I guess it's where you want to see a runner with the ball. And Ramsey came into it as it went on, but he didn't quite get there in certainly in the first half with that running power with the ball. But one area where we did, and this is what you wanted to again, like where we talk about how we're bypassing that press, and it did come to fruition a couple of times in that second half in particular.
Yeah, I said it earlier on. This is a perfect example of what I mean by a pressing trigger. As soon as Mourinho's got that ball, Forest are now pushing up higher and they're trying to press. But this is where JJ he's starting, just like I say, he's not quite there in terms of fitting into this quite yet, but he's starting to learn that if he can find space in between that press, players will find him. And this is exactly what happened in this situation here. We've sort of got him dropping in, and he's going to drop into that central area.
Yeah. And there we see it. And I remember this because I think it was Conser that played the ball over the top into him.
Yeah, exactly. The ball's gone. I think I've typed it that he went into Louise. I couldn't remember. I was watching another game at the same time, so it's quite tricky.
We'll let you off, mate. We'll let you off.
Yeah, but I think the ball went into Louise to Conser, but JJ has found that central space. Look how much space he's got. They've beaten the press. They're driving, and this is you can see the Forest back three there. Watkins is in, He's got passing options on the ball. The ball could come out here to the right-hand side, or it could be clipped over to Watkins. And so this is what he's starting to pick up on, because that box midfield didn't quite work against Forest. But with the movement, they found their niche almost on a few occasions.
Yeah. Really useful this. And then, yeah, Conser carrying the ball. Are we seeing a more confident Esri Conser now?
Yeah, I noticed it. I looked at the progressive distance, and he was actually the second. He was actually the highest player in Villa for progressive distance in carrying the ball in the game. Now you could say argue for both centre backs, but I don't think we usually see that from Konsa. A lot of ball carry, you might dribble it a few yards or whatever. But I noticed on a few occasions he sort of the space was there for him to drive into midfield, and he's got this ability. Out of him and Tyrone Mings, he's the one on the ball that's got the ability to do this. So it'd be interesting to see if they sort of move in on that a little bit
Yeah.
more.
See, now to me here, right, looking at my slight coach's hat on, for Buendia here is in a bad position for me. So what he should be doing is either running into this area here, which then creates the space for Watkins to run in behind, or pulling out here to receive the ball on the half turn, and then he can go in. But he's facing backwards, which only mean facing like away from the goal, which means he's just going to take the ball into this area here.
I can't believe you're not on the staff, Rich. To be honest, that's exactly right. But that's what's happening. Is that you're dead right. Buendia needs to drop into that space because we saw in the previous few slides that he was dropping into sort of deeper areas. So why would you not do that here? Yeah, it was a perfect example of it because again, he's got passing options on the ball. They're exposed Forest a little bit there.
Yeah,
I think we just got to
yeah,
get that sort of that. And this is what I said about Buendia. I think we're going. Should we move on to the next slide? And I
yeah.
think,
Let's go for it. Yeah,
yeah, I think this is what I wanted to say about sort of a bit of a mid-block shape because you've got four across midfield and you've got the two. We can see the 4-4-2 and Buendia's sort of into that. I still don't think this is Buendia's best position as part of a front two, sort of a hybrid thing. He needs to be in deeper areas, sort of where he can create a little bit better. And I think we do suffer with that at times out of possession.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And you've mentioned there maybe a Duran if he was a little bit more ready, but you definitely think we're going to go for a centre forward in the
do.
summer.
I do. I mean, I was quite surprised that he brought on. I thought he might give Duran minutes there because the thing is, it was on 28 minutes, wasn't it? And maybe he just thought that was just a bit too long. But it would have been interesting at home to see that if he would have brought on Duran, when Bailey went off and just left Buendia over on that on the left hand side, left when Ramsey on the right hand side, and just kept things the same, and just give Duran that little bit of. But maybe I don't know why he didn't. Maybe just not got that confidence in him yet. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I think, if there was a game where he could have come on and caused some havoc and got in amongst them, it was definitely Forest because they were definitely physical at the back, and I think it was a ready-made game for him. But we won the game 2-0. We can't complain, and we move on to Saturday, which is going to be a much tougher test for us.
Yeah, this is the one, isn't it? And this is the one where we're going to see now. We've had a few good games where we've won a few, and then where confidence is high. How are we going to do against a bet? No disrespect to the other teams, but a really good team in good form. So how are we going to get on? How is he going to set up? Let's have a look. Be
Yeah,
interesting.
it's going to be good, and we'll be here next week to
Yeah.
review it on Talking Tactics. Gareth, amazing analysis, mate. Thank you so much for that. As I said before, hit that like button, comment on anything you've seen in this video. If there's anything you want Gareth to look into as well, please get involved in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Quick plug, Gareth, where can everyone find you? I know you're getting more popular as the weeks go on.
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, at that karate JC, and as always, anybody wants to slide or anything, I'll try and post some rolling XG stuff for later to try and give a bit of an explainer to people and just see where we are actually at in reality.
Brilliant, mate. We will be back later on, I think, Wednesday night tonight for a running show. We're going to go over the running, see where we think Villa are going to finish. We'll be back with a preview show as well for the Newcastle game, and obviously, Talking Tactics to come. As I say, Gareth, thank you so much, mate. It's amazing analysis. Thank you everyone for watching, and as always, please do remember, we all follow the Villa. Thanks, everyone.